Good afternoon. My name is Robin Lamb, and I work with Entrinsik. We wanted to welcome you to our Informer 5 training series. The intention of these training series is to touch on the features available in Informer 5 and help you get started and become successful with your implementation. Today, we're going to do a demonstration of the general overview of the user interface. And in each week after this, we're going to cover different features and parts of Informer 5. So this is our front page of Informer 5, and as you can see, we've got an area for reports, our data sets. The reports in Informer 5 is basically anything that you're going to use to visualize or get your data. It could be a dashboard, it could be a report, it could be a comparison board. So it's a little different than just an ad hoc query like we had in Informer 4. The data set is a new concept for Informer 5. We want people to kind of concentrate on using data sets because we think of it as our one source of truth, and where we can kind of bring all of our data into one place where we can cleanse it, we can add calculated columns to it, we can do different things with the data sets that would be kind of outside of your databases, but we can combine the data from all the databases into one data set and then be able to use that data set to create the reports that we were talking about above. The data set also is going to be refreshed on some kind of timely basis. It could be a daily and an hourly, it could be every 5 minutes, it could be monthly, and those data sets will get refreshed, and then the reports that you've built off of those data sets will be refreshed on that same time increment. The data sources are basically where you're getting your data from, so where we're going to actually connect our data to. So it could be our database, it could be an Excel spreadsheet, it could be a CSV, it can be multiple different databases. So you can not just hook up your main system, you could also hook up any subsequent databases to Informer, and then we can link them together. The security model we have, it's basically based on teams and users, and we have different roles, and those will be covered in our session on security. And then we have the jobs, which will give you the ability to schedule and refresh your data sets, to be able to send emails, to send formatted emails. You can have multiple data sets in one job refreshing. And then, of course, there's administration. That's, with your setup and different, more IT-centric, being able to administer your Informer. On the home page, we have a news feed. So there is a collaboration piece to Informer 5 where if anything is going on that you should be aware of, it will show up in your news feed as you're adding things to, a data set, or you're changing something, it can show up in your newsfeed. With a pin is you have the ability to create your own dashboard, basically your own home page. So if there's a bunch of different reports or dashboards that you want to kind of daily monitor, you'll be able to pull up your pin and be able to open up your dashboard, and you'll be able to kind of monitor what's going on with the information that you need to keep track of. We do have an overall, just to kind of go up here in the very top corner, there is an overall search. So if I just wanted to search on something that I know is part of my data set or it's in my database, it's going to basically, if I start to type in a word, it's going to show me everywhere that word is appearing. So it's in the jobs, it's in my links, in between my tables, it's in my fields. And then if I click on one of them, it's going to bring me over to the page that is living on. And then up in the right-hand corner, this is just navigation. It's showing you just how to get to the different places. You can also do the same thing right on the front page here. And then over on the profile, this is going to tell us who's logged in, tells us the time zone that we're associated with. So if you need to change the time zone of how you want your data to display, this is where you would do that. If you're going to change the password, or if you want to add a profile picture. So those are some different items that you have in there. Also, if you want to get out to our Help Center, we do have the Help Center button that you can click on and log into. So if I click onto that, it's going to go out to my Help Center, and you can create a login. You'll be able to see our Help Center, and you can see all the different information that's out there. There's a bunch of articles and different instructions on how to do things. And we're constantly updating this, so please feel free if you to log into there, and you'll be able to get to that information. Okay, so we're going to jump right in. I'm actually going to go right out to the data set and show you an existing data set that we've already built. But before that, just to kind of look at the actual user interface, and everything in Informer 5, all the pages look similar, and they all have the same design. So on the left-hand side, you're just going to be able to see, if I click on all items, it's going to show me everything that's in there. You can create folders for your different data sets or your reports, and then you can organize them in folders. It's going to show you any of the things that you've created versus what something might be shared with you. And then also, if you have multiple data sources, it will show you the different data sources. And if you click on the data source that you're looking for, it's going to show you the list of reports to the right. And then to the at the very bottom, you can also create tags. So your reports can have multiple tags on them, and you can assign those tags, and you can change the colors and the different icons that are associated with them. To create a new data set, you click on New Data Set, and you're going to have these options where you're going to have Data Set Designer. You could write a native SQL query. You can upload a file, and then you can also, these are different plugins that you could have if there's specific things that are set up for your specific institution. But I'm just going to jump right into our data set that we have here. If I click into the data set, it's going to show you all the fields. And I've already created this data set just because of time for this session. But basically, you can see I've got a bunch of different fields in here. I've added all these fields from one data set. And if I'm going to click into the data set to show you kind of how it's built, if I click into here, you'll see that we have options to add fields. It's very similar for those of you that are on Informer 4. If I click on this item, I can see that I've got my tables in here, and I've got my links to my tables where I can see where all the fields are living. If I do a search up at the top, when I'm inside, it's going to show me the different tables that are in there. I can add fields just by clicking on Add. If I want to use this little magnifying glass, it will show me what the data is inside of that piece of inside that field. If I want to search or sort by any of those columns, I can do that. And then I can also add all, but I'm just going to close at this point. So that's how you add fields. If you wanted to add criteria, you can. You can add criteria to your data set, but basically when we think about a data set, we kind of want to leave the data set open so that we can have more data in there to filter from PostQuery. So I'll show you kind of where that happens. But if you do want to add criteria, it's very similar to our Informer 4 for those of you that are using it. You would select a field, and then you could enter in a value based on that. And we can also add in inputs or prompts for those queries. But I'm going to leave this one open for now and kind of keep moving through this. The other thing that we do have inside of Informer 5 that we didn't have is something called a flow steps, where I can add different types of calculations and fields to my data set that may not be part of my database, but they could be a calculated column. It could be, you know, adding a zip to geo, which is like a latitude longitude code, so that I can add it to a map. And these are all things that we can add to our data set to enhance the experience in using Informer 5. And so I'm just going to cancel out of this and go out to the front page. So the other really great feature about Informer 5 is the ability to use PostQuery Filters, where I can basically click on any one of these items, and I can say I want to filter based on something, and I can click on distinct values, and I can create a filter, and I can just pick on a couple of the items, and it's going to filter my data automatically. And if I want to save that filter, I have the ability to save those filters. And when I save those filters, they basically remain attached to this the data set. And then when I go to create the reports and the visuals from the data set, I can reuse those filters over and over again. And you can add multiple filters. So if I wanted to add another filter, I can just start typing. Maybe I want to look at, you know, product. I can start typing, or I can click on the field, and I'm going to add in product, and then I can add another filter, and it's going to keep continuing to filter my data based on the filter chips up in the above space. If I wanted to merge those two filters together and create one, I have the ability to do that by clicking on merge, and it's going to allow me to name that filter and save that filter for later on. If I want to get back to my data, I can just click out of the X's, and I can go and add other filters if I want to. So if I click on filter there, I can also look at the save filters. So maybe I've already saved a filter called 1998 sales. This is very old data, sorry about that. But it's going to go and it's going to filter my data, and then I can add more filters to it if I want to. And I can also, when I'm adding my filters, I don't just have to do an and. I can create or statements, or I can say match none of. So there's lots of different ways to kind of maneuver and manipulate your data. So if I click on my filter too, you will notice that I can even configure even more. So I can go down into the filters and I can change, maybe I want to look at it by a specific date period instead of the year. I can change it to month. I have all these different options. And something to kind of note when you're using Informer, when you see the three dots, basically those are going to be your options and your actions. So those are going to be where you can get into more configuration settings within Informer. So the filters are great, and again, as I said, they will kind of move with you as you go through and start building out more content. The other thing you can do inside of here, and this is just drag and drop, just very easy to be able to do. You can also modify different items inside of the formatting of the column. So you can format, you can hide the columns, you can group columns. So if I wanted to group something, to look at it in a different way, I can group by the customer, and then I could add aggregates if I wanted to. I can click on this little aggregate button, and I can say, okay, I want to look at by customer, I want to look at my total order amount. And I can add my total order amount. I can even add an average order amount. So I can add as many aggregates as I want to be able to look at my data. And then I can expand it and go up beneath and look at the data underneath it. So there's some other options you have when you use the drop-down button with the different columns. The other thing you can do from here is you can also export the data. So if you click on the export, I can click over here and I can see all the different items that I have to be able to export. So I can do PDF, I can do text values, tabbed and saved, and I can do CSV, HTML, and live Excel, JSON, and regular Excel. So you have all those options to be able to export and save them in different formats. Once we get through the adding of the data set and getting all my data in there, I'm then able to start building out different types of visuals. So if I click on the next button down here, is called a pivot table. I can click on my pivot table. This will help create pivot tables inside of Informer, so you don't have to export your data and then create the pivot tables out in your Excel document. I mean, of course, you can still do that, but we're trying to make it more of an all-encompassing tool where we can kind of analyze data. So if I click on the rows, I can then start to pick on different items. So let's say I do it by company, and then maybe across the top, I want to look at it by product. And then it's going to show me, it's going to automatically default to a count of the different products inside by the companies, and then I can also change to my values to be, maybe I want it to be, total order amount. I can do that. I can also, do an average order amount. I can add to my items, and it's going to tier them. I can also, if I wanted to, I can have it nest other information in here. So maybe I want to look at it by company and then salesperson. I can also do that, and it's going to save the salespeople underneath the company, and then I can open it up, and you can see all the data inside of there. So there's a lot of ways to kind of manipulate the data and take a look at what you got. If you want to save this as a CSV, I can save the pivot to the visuals first off. So if I save the pivot to the visuals, basically there's a visual button over here that Again, these visuals that I create right here on the data set are going to kind of remain with this data set. So when I go to create the reports, the visuals from there, I can then just add those really quickly to a dashboard. We have the option to add them on the fly also, but you can just have them kind of associated with this data set because of the fact that you really might want to have some users that are creating the data sets and then people that are creating the reports. So there are kind of some different functionalities. Our Discover is something brand new to Informer 5. It is a way to visualize your data very quickly, try to figure out what you want to see. Over on the right-hand side, you're going to see all the columns. You're going to be able to see what fields that you've put in your data set. And if I wanted to just start clicking on different information, I can click on company, and then I can click on, let's say, last name. It's going to automatically start to draw different visuals depending on what you want to see. And you can see that I chose company, and then I chose last name of the employee, which is the salesperson, and it's dividing this now out by each of those items. So if I click into one of those, I have the ability to drill down further into any of the other fields, or I can pivot by something, or I can just view that data from that piece of the actual visual itself. And then from those visuals, you have the ability to download, and I can download from the visuals themselves, and I can hit X and get out. But from there, I can save a visual, and it's going to allow me to save that over here in my visuals, and then I can use that later on. If I wanted to just start over and start my Discover over again, I can do that. If I choose something like a date field, Discover knows what types of charts you want to see if you're choosing a date field versus a text field versus a numeric field. A date field is going to create a trend chart automatically, and then a text field is going to give you like a bar chart or a pie chart, and it's going to allow you to do that. And the numeric field will give you kind of a statistical information based on that. And then inside of each of these visuals, there are these three little dots right here again are showing, and those dots are going to give you your configurations. The visuals we're going to go into in one of our sessions specifically, but each visual is going to have different kinds of configurations, and there's some that are more sophisticated than others. But on the front panel here, you have some just basic little buttons that you can use. So if I wanted to change my chart type, I could change it. I could change it to a line chart if I wanted to. It's gonna change it to a line chart. I can change my year to say, let's say, month of year. It's gonna give me my chart that way. I can split it if I want to, and do a split maybe by, let's say, we'll do it by product. That's going to give me, a different line for every product. So you can see that it allows you to kind of manipulate and see what you want to see. You can even make it larger to kind of enhance your view, and then I can make it smaller. And then you also have the ability to add a filter. So maybe I want to add one of the filters that I already created where I can say the 1998 sales, and now it's going to change my different sales in there if I wanted to look at that. And I could save that with the filter applied to it, and it's going to save that over under my visuals. There's a lot of different things. If I choose a location code, which I created from a zip code, it's going to create a map, which we can create a Google map, and it's going to kind of give you some pinpoints of the data. And so you can use this for any type of logistical data that you can get the latitude, longitude on there. So I can make that a little bigger just to give you a good view of it. And then I can make that smaller, and then we can go out to the visuals of where I've actually saved the visuals to the data set and kind of show you the list that I've got on there. So now you can see if I click on any one of these, you'll see that I've got different types of visuals saved here. This one in particular is kind of a neat visual too. Right here, you have the ability to create things that could have different value ranges. So on the one side, I've got the count of the orders, and so the blue is the count, and the orange is actually the total order amount. And so the count of the orders is only 420 items, but the actual order amount is $250,000. You have the ability to create multiple axes. So on the left is your order count axis. On your right is the total order amount axis. And then on top of this, I could overlay another series that could give us, you know, a goal or a different line series. So you can get very sophisticated with these visuals to kind of add to analyzing, you know, the data that you've got in the data set. So this is where the visuals live. Once we've, you know, figured out where our data goes and what we want in it, and then the visuals we might want to see off of it, we can then go over to the report area where I can start to build out the reports. So again, if I click up in the upper right-hand corner, I can click on reports, and it's going to show me the list of reports that I have. This screen looks very similar to the dataset screen. If I want to do a new report, these are my options. I've got comparison board, dashboard, data view, and ad hoc query. The ad hoc query, for those of you that are Informer 4 users, the ad hoc query is what we used as how we built the reports before. Every time you ran the report, it actually hits the database and brings back the data. Everything else inside of here would be built off of a data set. So that data set is built, you create a job to refresh it, and then these different dashboards and data views will reflect the changes as the data set's refreshed. So if I click on one of my dashboards, I think I've got it up here already. So here's my dashboard I created. I was able to, if I go into the actual dashboard itself, you'll see that I've got my data set is associated over here, but I can have more than one data set inside my dashboard, and I can add multiple visuals looking at different data sets. What I did was I hit insert and I say, go ahead and grab my saved visuals. It's going to go out to that data set, grab my list of my visuals, and it's going to allow me to add those visuals to my dashboard. So if I click on any one of these, it's going to ask if I want to add it, and I can add it to the dashboard. And the nice thing about that too is if I'm inside my dashboard and I want to just add a filter, I could add a filter just to an individual visual itself. So maybe I want to look at, you know, by a specific product. I only want to see a specific product, or I only want to see inside of a specific country. I could click into there and say, you know, show me just the ones in Germany. And it's going to filter just that specific visual, and then it's going to change my visual. And if I save that filter is going to stay on there. So I have the ability to do that, or I can actually go out to the main page itself, and I can apply a filter to the entire dashboard itself. And in this instance, we've only got one actual data set in there. So when I go to actually apply the filter, I click on the filter, and I can go grab my save filters again, and it's going to allow me to just filter based on any of the ones that I chose, and it's going to filter all of the visuals down below. The other thing you can do interactively is if I click on this, I could drill down. So if I wanted to drill down by product, it's going to change my visual. I can keep drilling down. And I have the ability, just so you know, to limit what people can drill down into, whether or not they can see the data. But it gives you a lot of flexibility to kind of start to look at your data in a different way. And then I can click into here and just click into and say view data, and it's going to give me the one row that salesperson sold. Anyway, you can kind of see how each of these kind of interacts. The other option we have with the dashboards, you have the ability to also create what's called a comparison board. So if I wanted to do a look at our comparison board, the comparison board basically gives you another way to kind of slice your data. In this instance, I've created a trend chart looking at the trends of order amounts by month, and then it's also by the country. So you can see that down below in your legend, you can see that the country is listed, and I can hover over and I can see that. If I click on one of these in there, it's going to take them off. from the legend. So you can kind of, you know, if you decide you only want to look at a couple of the items, you can do that. But then what I did below was I added multiple other items in here, other visuals. And you can add these on the fly. It's not just adding the saved visuals, but I have the ability to kind of create them. So if I click into here and go into edit and I want to add something else into my my comparison board, I can do that by clicking on insert, and I could say, well, I can either just do discover all over, I can do a save visual, or I can just create a chart on the fly. So if I wanted to click on like pie chart, and let's just create a quick pie chart, I could say we'll just do it by customer, and I can do a split by field if I wanted to, and I can split it by salesperson. It's going to give me each customer and then the salespeople that are associated, and then I can change, you know, what I'm actually splitting or what my value is. I can change it from count to, you know, maybe we'll just do something different, average order quantity, and I can hit save, and that's going to actually put it down below. So it's going to add something to the bottom of my comparison board. And what I can do then is at the top, it allows me to split it by something else. So in this case, I chose order date. So I said I'm gonna do order date, and it's going to allow me to split it by. I choose select values. You can see it's automatically they look identical because I took the split by out. If I change, I can click on 1998, so the left side is going to look at 1998. If I click on everything else, it's going to give me, I can choose to do 1997. And then what I can do from here is I can actually add to the right. I can keep going to the right to do some more comparisons. So this is really great for like looking at year-to-year comparisons, but you can compare anything. It doesn't have to be a date field. It can be anything. You could put products across the top. You can put branches across the top, or offices if you're doing some kind of financial analysis, looking side-by-side comparison. So once I've actually created something like this, I have the ability then to display this outside of Informer itself. So I can create an external link if I wanted to. If I click on right here, I can say generate external link, and I can do this with the dashboard also, where I can click on copy, and I can pop this up into my browser, and it's going to open up the same dashboard, but now I'm in my browser, I'm outside of Informer, and now I'm able to see the comparison board and be able to interact with it to the ability of whatever you set on your permissions. So, and lastly, I kind of want to just quickly show you, you can also create one other type of report, which is called a data view. So sometimes, you know, you don't need a visual, you just need a report. But if you've chosen to create your data set and you want to quickly see the data, so it's more like a report, but think about, you know, your data set being an over selection of your data, and you know, multiple people will be using this data. But then you can just quickly go in and just create, you know, what you want to see from that data set, and that's going to be what your report view is. And again, you can apply those filters. You can change that, and as this data set refreshes, then your data is going to refresh. So I hope you guys enjoyed the session. Please feel free to reach out to us, and I hope you have a great day.